Hey everybody, this is Matt Reed of the In Place ADHD Coaching, hence the shirt. This is the shirt I like to wear when I have a new client. I had a new client today, and that's actually what I want to talk about. For all of my new clients, I start with ADD education. ADD is tremendously well studied, but so much of what you find out there in the world is bad information, misinformation, myths, wives' tales, old stuff. I mean, how many times did my mom hear from another parent, oh, there's nothing wrong with him, you just don't give him so much sugar? No, that's not it. I actually have different wiring in my brain, and I have a legitimate neurobiological difference, and it's called ADHD. And that's like a real thing. So, I was thinking today as I was going through the ADD education session with my new client that I always emphasize when I go through the biology of ADHD, which is the biggest and most important section of that intro session, that the one biggest takeaway I want everyone to have is that ADHD is biological. It's physiological. It's a real thing. It's not because mommy didn't love you or daddy spanked you or you weren't properly potty trained or, your best friend stabbed you with a fork when you were 14. It's a thing that you were born with, and it may have manifested at a different age based on life circumstances. It's primarily genetic. There are other risk factors like trauma, strangely maternal smoking, and some other stuff that we're still understanding as the ADD community. But primarily it's genetic, and it comes from your family tree. But it's complex and often can look like other things. Symptoms can overlap with other things like dysthymic depression, anxiety, even bipolar. But as with any psychiatric disorder, it exists between our ears. And I think it's harder for some reason for ADHD to be understood by a lot of people because the symptoms don't necessarily externalize in a way that, say, schizophrenia does. Someone who's having a psychotic break and is violent or paranoid, that's a pretty external symptom. Even someone who's depressed and can't get out of bed, that's a reasonably external symptom. Not being able to pay attention, even if we had a unified definition of attention, that's a pretty internal symptom. So generally we grow up as ADDers hearing things like, and I'm just going to use he because I'm a he, he's not trying, he's lazy, he's unmotivated, he isn't living up to his potential if he just put more effort in. And the reality is that it's not about those things. I've never met anyone who doesn't want to succeed. Pretty much everyone does. And if we're put in a position where we can succeed, we do. But if our brain chemistry doesn't put us in a position to succeed, we often don't. But all that happens behind the scenes with ADHD. So it's very difficult for non-ADD people, and really even sometimes ADD people who've managed to make it through, i.e. parents of kids who have ADD maybe more severely, or their ADD affects them more because of the generation they're in, to understand it. So I'm going to say to you, what I want you to get out of today is the same thing I want my clients to get out of that first initial session, is that ADD is physiological. It's not because you have a psychological problem. and it's not because you have a character flaw. For the most part, it needs to be addressed pharmacologically, but also behaviorally. And if those things are done, there's no reason we can't be as successful or more successful than anybody else in the world. There's actually some evidence that we might be smarter than the average bear, but I'll come in next time with some statistics about how dealing with your ADHD versus not dealing with it, two very different paths that lead to people who can be very successful and people who, unfortunately, life often leaves them behind. So, but for now, be kind to yourself, love yourself, have empathy. It's not your fault, but go ahead and deal with it, because that's how you get to live the life you want to live, by managing your ADD, owning it, and managing it.